Hi, today I'm going to talk about planning for CSA baskets at Tourne-Sol Farm. And the outline I have is I'm going to start by introducing myself and the farm I farm. Then I'll talk about how our CSA works. And then I'll talk about the steps that we use to plan for our CSA and then you can also use for a CSA. And we started about 15 years ago with 110 CSA shares a week, and we've grown to 500 CSA shares a week. And I'm going to talk briefly about some of the challenges and well, not opportunities, but some of the challenges and decisions we had to make to go from one to the other. So let's jump in. So I'm Dan Brisebois, and I farm outside of Montreal in Quebec in Canada. So I'm about 6 hours off difference from the time right now and early in the morning. And it's pretty cold here. We're about, well, actually we're having a warm day today, but overall right now we're at minus 20 Celsius. And we have a lot of snow, though today it's going to go up to 5 degrees and it's going to rain, which we're not excited about because it's going to ruin the skiing. I'm part of Tourne-Sol cooperative farm. Tourne-Sol is the French word for sunflower, and it's also a play on words because it means turn the soil. And we're a workers co-op. There's 5 of us that started the farm about 16 years ago or so, and we've had 2 more people join. So as a worker co-op, we try to have an egalitarian, I guess, business model where there's a lot of input and sharing throughout the process. There are clear roles and people have responsibilities also. In addition to the 7 members, there's also 9 non-members who've been working with us for a few years, and some of them may become future members too. So it's a co-op that's continuously growing. And that's me on the far left. So I'm going to talk today mainly about the fact that we're vegetable growers, and we grow, since there's some of our fields, some of salad greens, and we grow a lot of staple crops, at least staple crops in the Canadian, Eastern Canadian context. I'm not 100% sure how different the diet is. So when I talk about vegetables, if there's something that you wouldn't like or grow, then just replace it mentally with something else. And we do, at this point, we used to do farmers markets. Now we only do CSA to sell our vegetables. And this is kind of what the drop-off looks like. We have 500 weekly baskets. And we also grow seeds. So this is a field of mustard greens. We grow about 6 acres of vegetables for our CSA and about 1 acre of seed. We have a seed company and we sell our seeds in small seed packets. Unfortunately, we don't ship internationally, but this is part of our business model, though it's not what I'm going to talk about today. I also run the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy, where I help farmers improve their planning and management through better spreadsheet skills. And I'll talk a touch about spreadsheets today, but not too much. So Tourne-Sol Farm, let's talk about our CSA. So we have 500 members every week. That's actually 700 families total. There's 300 who pick up every week and 400 who pick up every 2 weeks. So we break up the group of 400 into 2 groups of 200. So we have the same amount every week. And a lot of what we do in all our farming is try to make things predictable and constant so it's easy to plan. Because if we had 400 members 1 week, 600 another, 300 another, that would make it more difficult to plan for. So that's a big strategy that we have. We have 3 places that people pick up vegetables. 2 of them are off farm, and the farthest is about 25 minutes away. And then 1 location on farm, and we have 2 days where people pick up on farm. And so we've done a lot to keep our distribution network as close as possible. We are about just outside of Montreal. Montreal is a major city in Canada, so we are pretty close to probably 1 million people. So it's feasible for us to do that. In some contexts, if your population is further, it might be harder to be as close. And what our schedule looks like on Tuesdays, 120 people pick up in Beaconsfield, which is on the island of Montreal, and 130 people pick up on the farm. And on Thursdays, 120 people pick up at Pointe Claire, also on the island of Montreal, and 130 at the farm. So again, that's 250 on Tuesday, 250 on Thursday. We harvest Monday and Tuesday mornings for the Tuesday afternoon drop-offs, and we harvest Wednesday and Thursday mornings for the Thursday afternoon drop-offs. And so some of these pictures are a little bit older. I didn't have more recent ones, but this is one of our off-farm drop-offs in our early years. So people show up, they get in line, they give us their name, and then we have a list of what they get that week. So on that list, there are some things that everybody's kind of expected to get. And then we always try to have choices. Sometimes we'll have, so in this case, you see choices of, it was like beets or carrots, peas or beans. But we also, now we try to do sometimes choices of choose 3 amongst 7 items. And then so people go down through the basket and they pick stuff and they put it in, they make their own basket. And we have a lot of items that are pre-bunched or sometimes pre-bagged, but we try to avoid bagging, but pre-bunched, so it's easy for people to pick an item. But in some cases, we also do a bulk, and that means that there's a specific size, like take a basket of potatoes, or in this case, is like a basket of salad mix or a basket of beans, or even a basket of carrots when we have a lot of carrots. And we've chosen to do it this way instead of having a scale and people weigh stuff, because usually it's easier for people to put stuff in the basket and estimate by volume as opposed to going by weights. And then we also have an exchange basket at the end of each drop off, where if there's so it starts off with a bunch of vegetables, and if there's something that people don't like, they can put it in the vegetable basket, exchange basket, and take it out. And so we do, this is another thing that we do to try to, we don't let people pre-order everything, but we still want them to have a bit of flexibility in case they don't like something, already have something at home, or have food allergies. So what I've been showing you, this is how it's been historically. This year with COVID, when COVID came and we didn't know what was going to happen and we weren't sure how it transmitted, we actually pivoted very quickly and started to do pre-made boxes. And we had a conveyor belt and the box would go down it, and we have our team spaced every 2 meters, putting the vegetables in it, and we packed up and we made almost identical boxes for all our people. And we had them drive through, and then they'd give their name and then pop their trunk and put the basket in. And that was really appreciated by many people, though everybody was disappointed that it lost the personal contact. We couldn't, in the CSA is a place where you can really build community and that you can exchange with people. And that's something that was lost this last year. This coming year, now that, there's a lot more known about this virus, we are trying to revert to a system more similar to what we had in the past, with a little bit more food sanitation, but we want to bring back the community and a little bit more intimacy in what we're doing. So this is we're hoping something like this, but we'll see how it changes through the summer. So to plan for CSA, we'll start off by, you have to define what your CSA details are. And the first thing is, how many weeks are you going to run your CSA for? And this depends on your climate. Where we are, what's my next slide? Okay. Where we are, it's around May 1st that we know we can actually get into the field, because after the snow melts, the soil is really, really wet for a really long time. And then around May 1st, we can actually get in the field into plant at that point. So that defines, it's very hard to have CSAs that start too early if you're counting on field production. We have some large greenhouses. We have maybe a 1/4 acre under greenhouse all in all, maybe a little bit less than that. So we're able to produce stuff for early baskets. So in our early weeks, we are getting everything out of our greenhouses, and maybe asparagus out of the field, maybe rhubarb out of the field, depending on the weather. So we can start as of early May, but farmers that we start around the 3rd or 4th week of May. But farmers that we know who don't have greenhouse production, they'll start probably around end of June, July 1st, because they need to have time for the vegetables to grow. And then in the fall, there's a period where it starts to get colder, the nights get cold, things don't grow as well, tomatoes and that kind of crop die. So sometime near the end of September, there's a little bit less flexibility of crops, and we start to have to rely on stuff we've harvested earlier, like onions, carrots, beets, garlic, those kind of crops. And we can get the last crops in the field out in early November. So for us, it's about 22 weeks that we can do from the greenhouse crops right until beginning of November. And then we stop doing a lot of drop-offs in November because at that point, it can be days where it's -15 and a lot of our drop-offs are outside and we don't like to be there so much. So at that point, we actually reduce, and we have about 200 or 300 baskets that you can do for a few weeks in November that are at the farm or one off-site place in a short restricted schedule. And that's just for people who really want it. But our main season is 22 weeks. So that's something to think about, is what can you grow? What's the period you can grow in, guaranteed? And if you're new to CSA, you can start for less weeks. And you could, if you have a really good season, you could always add on weeks afterwards as a bonus. So that's the first part, is how many weeks are you going to do? So when can you start having diversity is a thing to think about, and what your storage crop challenges will be in the fall. And then when you're starting off to CSA, it's always good to be conservative. Start with less than you expect, less than you hope you can do, but what you are sure you can deliver on. Because one of the successes of CSA, how to be successful in CSA, is to deliver a really good experience to your members and to have them think that you have the best farm ever and the best vegetables, and they swear by you and they want to just keep supporting you, and they want to tell all their friends about you, and that's how it grows. And so if you are too ambitious early on and you don't give a nice diversity, you can't meet your commitments, that leaves a negative experience, and it might be harder to expand or to maintain the same size. So the next question is, what value do you want to give each week? We aim to give around 8 to 12 items per week, and so that there's some diversity so people can cook with. And I'm not 100% sure what habits will be in Ukraine, but where we are, a lot of people don't cook every meal. So we're trying to give probably enough food for maybe half the meals of the week. And we're trying to focus on stuff, people like salads because they're easier to make and it's important to eat salads. We try to put in stuff that kids will like cherry tomatoes or cucumbers. And stuff that people are going to want to use. We always offer some stuff that's less common, but we make sure to do that in choices, because if somebody doesn't know a vegetable, we don't want to force them to do that. So that's kind of around the items that we put. So you also need to assign a price for each item, and when you're valuing. So if you sell at farmers markets or have other outlets, then you already have a price list of how you think about your prices. And you should build your basket around prices like that. And we used to go to farmers markets, so we have a good idea what the prices are in our area. And so we kind of price our basket around market prices, and then we subtract about 10 to 15% from the value to price it. And in our context, we aim for, I think our price is about 32 Canadian dollars. I'm not sure what that is in euros, so 32 Canadian dollars. And we aim to give something like maybe like $38 to $42 over the season in the basket, maybe 36 to 42 in the basket. And so it's important to have a target for what you're going to do each week, both in quantity diversity and then dollar value or price value. Now, sometimes folks like to have a small basket, a medium basket, and a large basket that they offer clients. I find that a hassle because it's hard to make each basket fair in comparison to each other. And maybe you're going to try to so there's different strategies. Either your small basket has like 5 items, your medium has 7 items, your large has 10. I mean, that's one strategy, but then you want to make sure that they're balanced out. Another strategy is the same item, but in one you give a small cabbage, the other give a big cabbage, but it's hard to think that way. And then when you're harvesting, it's hard to triage that way. So we instead go with one size basket, but you can pick up every week or every 2 weeks. And that way you either make it last longer or else you use it, every week. And that's a strategy that's helped us make it a little bit easier in planning. And then there's the price or the value of the whole season. So we take the number of weeks that you're going to be selling times the price. So if you were doing 15 weeks and you were doing $30 a week, you do 450 for the whole season. And that's the price that you charge. And with that, that gives you sort of the details. And if it's your first year, as I was saying, or early year, even if you could do 20 or 25 or 30 weeks, depending on your weather, start smaller so that you're not committing to more than you're not going to regret your commitment. And I would say for the price though, try to value honestly. You want to give people a good deal, but you have to value your work. This is what's going to make you profitable or not. If you don't give the right value for the vegetables, you're going to struggle. And so I would be very conservative on the week number, but I would be more ambitious on the price, because this is something that if you started at $20 a week, but really it was worth 30, it can be hard to raise your price later, or you might lose people as you raise your price. So next up is to plan your CSA contents. So the first thing is to define your products. So these are there's a spreadsheet that I think there's a link coming up to it, or I can also share that afterwards. That kind of so figure out what you're going to grow. And so the different crops, and figure out how you're going to sell them. What format? Are you going to sell them by weight? Are you going to sell them in a bunch? Are you going to sell them as a single unit? You have to think about that before you make your plan, because it'll make all your sales decisions later. And then the price for those units. And I recognize that these prices are in a different currency and in a different context, so they may not apply. And prices change across Quebec and Canada too. So this is more just to have numbers to work with. So once you know what you're going to grow, next up is to plan each week. And so in this case, we use a spreadsheet. We use Google Sheets, but you can do this on a spreadsheet. And you have a column for each week. So, and then as you go through, so this is where the link is to the spreadsheet. You can go into the slides later and grab that. So you plan, so this is the items that you're offering, and it can be much longer than that. Then each week you would add in what you're planning on giving each week. And if you want, you can also, if you want to do if you want to do choices and stuff, maybe you'd say you're doing 0.5 green onions and 0.5 kale, that kind of thing. So you plan out the week, and then on the bottom, it gives you a dollar value for that week and how many items that week you're doing. And so you can, as you plan out your whole week, you get that amount. Aim for your basket value right from the start. And we do that for two reasons. So try to get the value right from the beginning, as opposed to aiming to give less early, and then when there's a lot of crops in the middle of summer, give a lot, because you might have a crop failure and then you won't be able to deliver as much as you plan to. And also, if you're driving to a site, your truck is one size. So if you have to give twice as much later, it means you only can bring half as much early. So plan to give your value right from the start. So we started at 110 shares and we moved up to 500. I don't know if I recommend starting at 110. We were 5 people that began the farm. We had all worked on farms for about 5 years. A number of us had managed CSAs on other farms, so we felt experienced. So 110 may already be ambitious at the beginning. So, but this is a bit some of what happened to grow from one scale to the next. So there's a few challenges that came along. One is having to maintain weekly diversity over 500 shares. Or this is a challenge with CSA in general, is that if you've only been selling for farmers market, you have to be able to maintain enough stuff to not only give 1 or 2 items for many weeks. Another challenge is, and this is so that first challenge exists straight from the beginning, and it grows. The next one, there's a lot of administration and bookkeeping that comes, how you register people, how you keep track of who you've registered, if people pay by checks or in advance, or if they pay by installments, how you keep track of that, how you communicate with them to ask whether, to pay, to settle their bill. All of that, when you have 5 or 10 members, it's not so hard. But when you have 500, this becomes a real job, because you need to make sure you get paid. And so this is something that was a real headache that's growing from one to the next. Another challenge is when you're very small, it's easy for people to email you or contact you and say, I'm going to miss a week, and you can schedule it. But as we've grown bigger, we've had to find ways that are more systematized with online calendars that people can move their dates around, and give them limits that you can only do that up to 48 hours beforehand, so that we know how many people we're harvesting for. And we've had to create policies that if you miss your basket, you have 24 hours to pick it up, and it's going to be in this fridge outside of our farm where you can come and get it. So these are things that are tough to do as you get more people, and you have to think this through. And it's why it's nice to start smaller and master the small scale before you get bigger. And another thing is, when you're small, it's easy to know everybody's name, to know their kids' names, to know what they like to eat, to know what's going on in their lives. And as much as the quality of the vegetables and the diversity is important, that one-on-one connection you get and building that community, this is what also makes them fall in love with you. And it's much easier to do smaller. And as you grow, if you grow at an organic scale, like kind of step by step, it means you can keep building those relationships over time, and that you're not suddenly having 500 people who have to become your best friend now. And there's no way you can maintain a relationship with 500 people that you don't know. So I would just highlight, maybe you can't start at 110 baskets a week, and I would caution you if you're to do that. I'm really a big proponent of starting small and learning. Even if you're doing 5 or 10 baskets a week, this will really teach you a lot. This can be an interesting part of your income. You might not be able to make a living off of it at the beginning, but much better start small and succeed and get bigger than start too big and have challenges and then quit. So to wrap up, make a plan, and that's the weeks, your dollar value, and then what you're going to do through the season, and how many people you want to get, because it's possible you tell your friends or family, I'm going to do this, and it's possible it's hard to find 5 or 10 people, but it's also possible that 40 people want to take it right away. So decide early how many is your maximum that you're going to do, and get ready for a waiting list. And if you have a successful season and you have more vegetables, maybe you add extra shares at the last part of the season to take advantage of that. And start small and get bigger as you get better. I really believe in this at all steps in life in general. So I do a lot of stuff with spreadsheets. If you want to kind of see more about the spreadsheets, this is my website, spreadsheet.farm/top10 will get you access to, I'm going to have these YouTube videos. This is a selection of them. Some of the video quality is not fantastic, but the content I think is excellent. So thank you so much for listening to me. I'm really pleased with this opportunity to speak to a bunch of growers that I would never meet in another context. And if you want to stay in touch, so this is the address to get that link. This is on Instagram. I'm at Spreadsheet Maniac. Even though it says spreadsheets, I talk a lot about farming, a lot about seed production, and about how to use spreadsheets to plan your farm. So thank you so much. And that's me.
Thank you very much, Dan. Wow, you made for us a really guide how to organize in CSA farm. Thank you very much. And we have a few questions. Let me see just. Okay, the first one is, how far is your farm from the city?
So we are 45 minutes with no traffic from downtown. But in recent years, there's been a lot of construction, which takes about an hour and a quarter to get downtown, like to the real downtown of the city. But Montreal is an island with a lot of suburbs, and we're on the west side. So for about 15 minutes around us, it's all countryside, and then it gets fairly dense. And so I would say that within 25 minutes, we have suburbs that we can service. I would say, though, that about half of our members come from the countryside. So there's people who it's not just urban people who like good vegetables and are willing to pay for them. There's also people in the countryside that really value eating well. But I think that if we didn't have the city as close, we would probably have to drive further afield to have our full baskets.
Thank you. And one more question is, how did you get used to clients on the weekends pickup? Here is expected for Fridays.
Well, I think I guess one answer is, if you offer something, that's what people can take, you know? And so I think that you should think about what's best for you and your farm and be very clear about that. Now, if you can't get people to sign up, then you have to adapt to what they want. But one thing that we found is that sometimes people like to go away for the weekend or have other plans. And so if they have to come by your farm on Friday afternoon, so the advantage of Friday afternoon is stuff is fresh for the weekend. But the disadvantage is you can't rush home from work to get ready to do something else. And so that's the way that a lot of our clients feel. And personally, we feel that way too. So we don't work much in the field on the weekend. We really try to have a Monday to Friday job because with our kids and all, it's just easier for our families.
Thank you very much. And the last question, do you have a logistic company to operate, or it's only your trust?
No, we don't use a logistic company. We have our own van, and we drive to the location, and we physically stay on farm on the location to deliver it. And I think so. One of the ways you can measure your success as a CSA is your renewal rate. So how many people sign up again the next year? And we have a renewal rate of about 80%. That means that out of 500 families, 400 will likely sign up the next year. And we only have to find 20% more. And for sure, the product that you give is part of that. But I think our true success has been that we've been present from the beginning. And because we're multiple people, it's like I've always been going to the same drop off, and I have been talking to these people for 15 years. I know their names. I've watched their kids. I've watched their kids go from a tummy to now they're early teenagers, and in some cases I've also seen their kids start a little older, and now they're getting baskets. And I think that yes, you can hire somebody to bring that basket somewhere and do deliveries, but I think that the real relationship building is when you're there and you can talk to people. It also gives you the chance to explain your vegetables and give recipes. I mean, you have to go quick enough so people go through the line, but being there and being a face and having a human connection, I think that's the real value of CSA. And I think that's the long-term success of small farms, because we can't compete with the big players. On price, at least, but on community, we can.
Thank you very much for so many practical aspects. Wow, great. It was great, really. I can see a lot of thanks from Facebook stream and from Zoom chat. So everybody is satisfied, as I see. Thank you very much.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I wish all of you great success in your CSAs.